What's going on, everyone? Brian here from Native Instruments. During the holiday season, we have tons of bundles and discounts available at nativeinstruments.com. The bundle that I'll be talking about today is the cinematic bundle of Sequis and Arkhis. I'll be sketching out a track using both of the instruments and showing some unique features of them along the way. Now, before we jump into it, make sure you like and subscribe down below so you get notified of all of the great discounts available. Sequis and Arkhis were both created in collaboration with orchestral tools. Sequis is an inspiring acoustic sequencer where you can quickly create looping melodies, dynamic pads, and rhythmic patterns. Arkhis is a powerful instrument that can be used to create temporary underscores and powerful atmospheric sounds for any project. Let's make some music with Sequis and Arkhis. I'm going to be sketching out a track using both Arkhis and Sequis, and currently I have a blank session open. Let's just start finding a preset from Arkhis to start with. So I'll search Arkhis, click on the product tile, and already now we have all banks, and these are a handful of subcategories or sub-banks that I can choose from. Let's just listen to a few of these presets. So this one sounds cool. Just double click it and it loads. And the way that Arkhis works is you have three separate layers. There's layer 1, 2, and 3. And then this dial right here, or using the mod wheel, basically lets you blend between all three different layers. Now, if you want to change the preset, you can always go back to the browser here, or you can use the preset navigation area inside of the GUI. So again, these are the different banks to choose from. There's motions, pad, there's sparkles. Can cycle through. So I like this one a lot. Now, if I bring down the mod wheel and we just play some notes, what we're just going to be hearing is layer 1. And then as I start blending, so that's all three layers simultaneously. So let's record in a chord progression just to kick things off here. Now let's record in some lower notes using the same sound. So let's go on and add another part and basically build a sound from scratch. The way you start designing your own sound is by swapping out the instruments that are used in each layer. So right now we just have layer 1, which is the string ensemble quiet longs. Let's take a listen to how these sound. I want to swap these out, so I'll just click the drop down here. And these are all of the different instruments that you can choose from. There are chamber strings, woodwinds, harps, waterphone. I kind of like having the string ensemble as the foundation for this sound, but I want to change the articulation or what type of sound for the string ensemble. So right now we're on quiet longs. Let's just change this to longs. The string ensemble longs are kind of filling up the lower frequencies. So for layer 2, I want to add an additional sound that kind of fills up the higher frequencies here. So I'll click the drop down and let's select the vocal. And here we have vocal ensemble longs, quiet longs. I want to choose the choir, and let's hear how this sounds right now. Trying to hear the choir and the string ensemble, it just sounds like the choirs are just kind of being folded into the strings, little hard to hear it. So what you can actually do is change the pitch of each individual layer. So now when I start bringing in layer 2, we should be able to hear the choir just a little bit better. Layer 3, we'll choose something that's, let's say, a little bit different. There's the dulcimer. Let's do the guitar here, and let's choose the guitar ensemble stutter, and also bring this up an octave. In addition to being able to select which sounds you have per layer, each layer you also have independent envelope controls, so you can adjust the attack, hold, decay, sustain, and release, but you also have 3 individual effects, filter, delay, and reverb per layer. So the string ensemble, I want to add the filter here just to make it more of a kind of a subtone. So I'll engage the filter and start tweaking some of the parameters. Perfect. So let's track this in and start adding it to the track. And let's duplicate this out. And there we go. So let's add an additional element, but this time we're going to use Sequis. So Sequis and Arkhis are kind of similar where you're dealing with layering multiple sounds together. So with Sequis, you have 4 different sounds that you can layer together with this performance control that gives a lot of these presets, a lot of these sounds, some additional movement. Now, the rings in the center here, this kind of indicates how many layers you have going on simultaneously. Using the mod wheel, this is just 1 layer, and you can see that there's 1 ring. As I increase the mod wheel, it has 2 layers, 3, and 4. Right now it's in loop mode, so when I'm holding down notes on the keyboard, it's basically just looping the pattern sequencer that's happening in the edit page here. We'll go back to Perform a sec and let's select a preset. So I'm going to go to the preset navigation area here, and these are all the different categories you can choose from bows, flutes, keys, and mallets. And I'm going to go to the basslines area and find something in here. Kind of interesting. Let's go to the next preset. So this has a good kind of rhythmic feel to it, but I just want to change the pattern a little bit. So I'm going to go to the edit section here, and this is where you're going to be changing kind of the step sequencer of this instrument to customize the rhythmic pattern that you have. Right now, if I just play it, we can kind of see how all of the different sounds are being triggered. So this sound has 4 different instruments included. There's the steel guitar, the bass, contra bass flute, and the wood percussion. And you can solo each individual element to hear kind of what you're working with. So that's the bass, the steel guitar, the contrabass flute, and last but not least, the wood percussion. And if you want to swap out any of these sounds, you can just click the drop down here and choose from a wide range of different instruments. So maybe we want the piano, and let's change this to single octaves. So now if we listen, perfect. Now up here, these are kind of, I would consider it 4 bars to choose from. And right now you can also disable 3 and 4. So we're just going to be having a kind of 2-bar pattern that's looping over and over. Right now it's just going to play 1 and then 2. You can also have certain bars repeat, or you can have it play forwards and backwards before it jumps on to the next one. So I want to change the pattern a little bit. So let's just disable these sections here. And basically these are the velocity triggers per instrument. Anything that you see with a dot is considered kind of an accent note. So let's just disable all of these. And I want a different rhythmic pattern. So let's add some elements here. Double clicking will add the accent note. And there we go. So I want this kind of falling rhythmic pattern here. Let's listen to how this sounds. Perfect. So this gives it a little bit more of a driving feel to it. So let's track this in at bar 17. The next thing I want to do is add some sort of a kind of melody to this idea, and I'm going to use Sequis for this again. So I found this preset called post-rock intro, which I particularly like. Now, one of the other modes that I didn't mention yet is there's mod wheel, but then there's also poly note. And the way that poly note works is instead of having the mod wheel control which layers are currently playing, poly note is triggering layers based on the number of notes or keys that you're currently playing. So if I'm only hitting one note on the piano, we're only going to hear the first sound in the layer. And in this case, all it is the piano here. Now, if I trigger 2 notes, you're going to be hearing the piano and the viola simultaneously. 3 notes, we'll add the steel guitar. And then some more percussive elements doing 4 notes at the same time. So what I want to do is actually swap out the viola here and have something that's a little bit more like a staccato note. So let me just find in the articulations. Here is the spiccato. So we'll go back to perform on poly note. So 1 note, just the piano. And if I had 2 notes, we're going to hear the piano and the viola. So let's track this in. Now let's duplicate all this stuff quickly. And now let's add in some grand strings to kind of build to this climactic moment. Now for some big strings at the end, I'm going to load up one of my favorite instruments, which is the Symphony series string ensemble. We'll load up the full ensemble here. Let's take a listen to how this sounds. Let's record in some big strings at the end. So a couple more things I want to do just to kind of finish off this idea. I just want to create some sort of a very rough ending. So what I'll do here is I'm going to duplicate this piano sound that we have. And right now, again, it's on poly note. So again, if I hold down 2 notes, we're only going to hear the first 2 layers. What I'm going to do is switch this to the mod wheel. So now the amount of layers is being controlled by the mod wheel. So just 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So I'm just going to record some kind of octaves at the end here. The last thing I want to do is have the chord progression play during the last 4 bars, but change up the sound a little bit. So what I'll do is duplicate this track. Let's copy over this chord progression and let's just slice it here. Now let's open up the GUI and swap out the sound. Now the last thing I wanted to talk about was the LFO that's built into Arkhis. This is another way that you can basically give your sound, your layers, more movement. So this area down here, this is where you enable or disable the LFO parameters. Now the little stopwatch here, this is where you adjust the LFO rate, if you want to have it be synced to the project's BPM or not, and the intensity of it. Now where the LFO is being applied to is dictated by these 2 buttons here. This will apply the LFO to the effects section, or this will apply it to the layers. So let's just swap out the sound and kind of use the LFO and see what we can get. Sounds pretty good. So let's open up the effects section here and just do something a little bit drastic so you can hear how the LFO will affect the effects and the layers. So first we'll just enable the LFO, just change the rate to something high, big intensity, and enable it on the effects layer. So let's add some filter, just add some bit reduction just for the fun of it, and let's hear how it sounds. So you can hear the LFO kind of creating this kind of pulsating effect with the effects here. And there's also a little animation. There's a little dot here that just lets you know that the LFO is enabled. Now you can also disable or enable the LFO animation if you want. I just like having it on, looks visually cool, doesn't really change the sound at all. But then you can also add the LFO to the layer area. So now let's listen to how it all sounds together. So you can hear we have that piano sound, the pulsating effect using the LFO. And again, the LFO effect being applied to the effects layer or the instrument layers, it just gives your sound some more movement. So the idea is coming along nicely, and there's just a couple tweaks and things that I want to add just to make this project a little bit more full. So one of the things I want to do is kind of add a new sound that comes in at bar 5, and really what I'm hearing is kind of this, sparkly atmospheric sound. So Let's load up another instance of Arkhis. I'm just going to see if I can find a preset in here that sounds good. We'll go to sparkles and let's try this. So it sounds pretty good. I just want to add a few effects just to make it a little bit more washed out. And again, to apply the effects in this chain to the layers, this is where this kind of little slider comes into play. So let's take a look at the effects. Let's turn on the chorus, increase the mix. Definitely want to turn on the delay, a little bit of feedback, and let's change the reverb here to Crystal Caves, increase the dry wet amount, and let's see how this sounds now. So let's track this into bar 5 here. Now, I don't really need to quantize this just because it's creating this kind of atmospheric sparkle sound, so I'll just leave this as is. Now, the next thing I want to add is a piano sound, and I loaded up one of my favorite pianos, Noir, and what really makes this instrument unique is this particles engine that essentially just creates this really unique kind of delay effect. So with Noir open, I'll just click this icon, and this is where the particle engine is. And this is where you can kind of increase the amount of particles or just hearing more of the original piano tone. So without it, and then with the particles engine, so it just adds this and creates this really nice sounding texture. Now, I also just want to turn on the reverb for this. Let's just increase it, add a little bit of delay, and let's listen. Perfect. So let's record this in now to the project. The next thing I want to do is kind of smooth out the transition between, bar 24, 5, and 6. So when this other piano sound comes in, just make it sound a little bit smoother. Now, Sequis also has a handful of effects, and when I was browsing through, I found something called a short riser, and if we just listen to it, so let's just record this in quickly. Now, before we play back the track, there was just a couple additional tweaks and things that I had added. So as an example, the kind of intro string section, when it comes back in at bar 9, I removed some of the lower notes just because there was too much bass. There was low notes here and in the low string, so it just felt like it was a little bit too much. I also added a couple tracks with the Symphony series brass ensemble. So for example, at bar 13, I'm using the solo French horn. That's basically playing this melody that comes in. And then at the end, I'm using the full brass ensemble. So this includes the tubas, trombones, French horns, and the trumpets. And it's basically playing along with the full string ensemble that we had recorded at the end. So let's just take a listen to that part. So let's just play it back and take a listen to all of the elements together. Hopefully this gave you some inspiration to check out Sequis and Arkhis yourself. Again, go to nativeinstruments.com to check out all of the specials and deals happening right now. Thanks for watching.